home sweet homecoming, but was it all about improvement or was some of it about the opponent?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll tell you about FanDuel in just a bit because big NFL day today that you want to be a part of. Also, thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Thank you for struggling with me last night as I got through the end of that game and tried to do a solo, and Jimmy jumped in on my coattails as usual. But and if you saw me dancing at the beginning of this, because I've really gotten into our little song. I like it. It's and I'll tell you something.
A while to get used to. We had a different song. We've had a couple different songs on here.
And it's a lot happier on Sunday mornings when you win. It's definitely a lot happier when you win 34-0. But Jimmy, I pondered over this last night. I thought about it a lot. I watched a lot more football as the night wore on. And I tell you, let's start with the happy stuff. But we will talk in the second segment about, was it the opponent that made us look better? Because I do want to start with the happy stuff because there's a lot to be happy about. And some people have gotten on to me in particular for being too negative. So let's start with happy. Happy. And I talked about this yesterday. The kicking game, meaning Talty, meaning Graham Nicholson, meaning Burnip. I thought Burnip played really well. I thought Burnip should have gotten a roughing the punter penalty on that one time. The guy put his shoulder into him. Again, I thought we were trying to protect punters. I thought we were. And if that's going to be always running into, okay, I can buy that. Nicholson making two pretty field goals. It wasn't like he just skirted them in there like that kick the guy for Tennessee had in 2022, where it sort of hit I think it hit Byron Young's hand and then it just sort of helicoptered its way through the goalpost. No, these were pretty. I mean, they look good, like a tight spiral, whatever the tight spiral version of a kick is. That's what they look like. And then Talty kicking them back, doing well. I'm fine with this combination of Nicholson not kicking off and Talty kicking. And then I think Burnip's the holder. So the holding was good. And considering we saw somebody yesterday, God, what game was it where, it was LSU, where the snapper hit the holder in the face.
In the face. Yeah.
In the face. Hit him in the face. You can see how these things can get screwed up. So, I think we start with those guys because we've been here on Locked On Bama, we love us a good field goal kicker. Because if Alabama had a good field goal kicker every year of Saban's year, we'd probably have 2 more national championships. But Nicholson is coming on, and I'm here for
it. 2 things about criticism of Nicholson. One thing is, and I think maybe some fans didn't understand this or thoroughly, research it, but Nicholson didn't show up with a big leg. I mean, he's extremely accurate. That's why he was, I think, 27 of 28 when he's at Miami of Ohio. But his longest kick of his whole career, and that's 3 years of being a starting kicker before he got to Alabama, his longest kick of his career was 52 yards. So this was not a big-legged dude. And Connor Talty won the kickoff job easily. He's been the kickoff guy since week number 1, which is further evidence that Graham Nicholson just isn't a big-legged guy. He's just accurate. For some reason, I sensed some level of criticism out there about Graham Nicholson because he has so few attempts. How that's a criticism of him is beyond me. That's not his fault. Alabama is a really, really good red zone offense. So when they get the ball down in the red zone, they score touchdowns. It's not because Alabama was like, geez, I don't know if we want to try a 38-yard field goal here. It's because Alabama could go for it on 4th down and make it and make touchdowns. There never should have been any criticism whatsoever that Nicholson had few attempts. And in terms of his misses, yes, there's been 2 misses, and that's one more than he missed all of last season. But both misses have been longer range field goals. One was well over 50 that, frankly, if we're going to criticize anybody, I would criticize DeBoer because maybe that should have been a Connor Talty. That should have been Talty's kick, and maybe they should have had a finer line of, okay, Nicholson's got everything 49 and in, Talty's got everything 50 and over. And So I don't think Graham Nicholson really should have faced much criticism at all. And then last night he was yesterday afternoon he was outstanding. Like you said, Luke, it's not just that he made the kicks; he looked like a high quality place kicker when he nailed both of those through.
Yeah, and he missed his first attempt in an Alabama uniform, I believe, and I think it was against Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that was not long, but if I remember right, it was something like 49.
It wasn't super
short.
long, but here's the thing. I want to chalk that one up to that's your first kick. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like your first tee off at 824 at a new golf course, and you shank one into the fescue, and you're like, okay, everybody's like, just get you a mulligan, it's cool. Yeah. But people don't need to haunt you with that the rest of it. So I choose to say he's only missed one this year. I choose to.
And then that one that you're talking about was like 54 yards. It would have been his career long. And again, I put that on DeBoer. So I think Talty should have kicked that. But regardless, I think Alabama's in great shape as far as when it comes to kicking the ball. I did think special teams was much better because there wasn't the numerous errors that we've had in the recent past.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because what I'm afraid of, if we compliment this guy, we're going to get into the weeds, and some people and may end up being negative. I'm just going to say I give flowers to Kane Womack. I thought the defense played much better. I'm about to get in the weeds, just what I was worried about in terms of there were some times later in the game when we knew they were running. And again, I'm not a football aficionado, but I was thinking, there's a lot of space between our three defensive linemen and our linebackers, and we know they're running the ball. So why don't we run blitz or put some people up? I mean, are we worried about – it felt like we were playing prevent at times to me. Yeah. That being said, I'm going to give him flowers. We shut out an SEC opponent. Forget who, forget the why, forget all that. You shut out an SEC opponent that hasn't been shut out since 2019. You deserve accolades. So for all those, including us, who have killed Kane Womack from time to time, to Kane Womack, we offer congratulations. That was nicely done. Now, another guy that I wanted to bring up that I thought played really well was KLaw. He is so dangerously close to being what we want him to be. I'm going to tell you, Jimmy, here's the other thing. I think I've determined this. And I love determining it this way versus determining it from what he says in a press conference or what he says in a media appearance or whatever. I think Kendrick Law is a gump. And I mean that in the most complimentary way because you know what he's got? He has a little too much Bama in him. Now, has he made some stupid plays like the thing at Tennessee that got the penalty? Yeah, of course he has. And we didn't lose because of that, but that was dumb. Did he have a 50-yard return for a kickoff against South Florida and then ultimately fumble it? Yeah, because he's still learning and he needs to get a little better. And frankly, he probably hadn't enough touches in his career to handle that kind of stuff. And those are things that most people go through, those growing pains. His kickoff return or kick six attempt return at the end of the half, I thought was a spark. I kept saying on Twitter, we need a spark. I don't know if that spark means you take Milroe out. I don't know if that spark means we go Wildcat with Kobe Prentice. I'm throwing out just wild stuff now. But we needed a spark. I felt like that was the spark because when you saw him running, he wasn't going to be denied until somebody just ultimately dragged him down. And then he had a nice run. In fact, he had the longest run of the day for a while where he caught the corner and it was difficult to get. It wasn't an easy corner. And then he gets by a couple other guys and gets about 15 extra yards. I'm telling you, I think KLaw is becoming a true, if he's not already, a true gump. And he loves the University of Alabama. And he's starting to play a lot better. And that penalty on him towards the end of the game or on that punt return thing, that was stupid. And we'll talk about how bad the officials were later.
Yeah, I think KLaw is making some strides and becoming a bigger part of things. I think it's critical for Alabama to be as good as they can be, that more people have to be involved. I think at one point in the season, maybe during the 3-game stretch where it wasn't good, Vandy, South Carolina, and Tennessee, that the offense just kind of became Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams, and that was the offense. And that was just never going to be good enough. For one thing, you can't put all of that on the quarterback. It's too much, and he's eventually going to get hurt. And I think to some extent we're still seeing what to me doesn't look like 100% Milroe. And by that I mean in the run game in particular, it just doesn't look like the old Milroe to me at all. But he was still highly effective, and he played, I thought, well. I wouldn't say extremely well, because I've seen him play even better. I've seen a better Milroe than that, but that was good. That was winning SEC football. And what I like about getting KLaw involved, to me, it's all part of one thing, Luke, which is getting KLaw involved and Milroe playing better is all part of one thing, which is expanding the offense, getting more people involved, Milroe becoming a distributor as opposed to, hey, it's the Jalen Milroe show, which is just too much to carry. It's not a criticism of him. It's just too much to carry. But I think distributing the ball and getting more people involved is huge. And Kendrick is definitely making strides in terms of becoming a pure wide receiver. Still like to see him do a better job of running routes and what I call making himself available to the quarterback. When you run a route and create a lot of separation and you're a big target, you make yourself available to the quarterback. And I think he's doing a better job of that, but there's still some improving to do there. You mentioned Womack earlier. I think anytime you shut out an SEC opponent, I don't care whether their quarterback was hurt. A lot of teams' quarterbacks are hurt, and a lot of teams are playing a number 2 quarterback. Every number 2 quarterback in the SEC should be good. If Alabama's starting quarterback got hurt, I don't think Alabama fans are going to throw their hands up in the air and say we have no chance because Ty Simpson has to play. I mean, everybody should have a number 2 ready to go in this league and in the NFL. And the fact that Alabama shut out a team whose starting quarterback was hurt, I mean, to me, that's not. To me, it affects nothing at all. Missouri's a top 10 preseason team all spring and summer. Try to find a playoff prognostication that did not include Missouri. That was a really good team that Alabama easily dispatched by playing well and clean on both sides of the ball. Oh, mute. You can't. Mute.
I'm muted.
Muted.
I was
Still
muted.
muted.
That's on me. I'm not muted anymore.
You're not muted anymore. You're telling us all about FanDuel.
I know.
It's NFL Sunday.
It is NFL Sunday. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game and it's not them nachos you were munching on, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more at the same page where you place your bets, yo. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with 150 smacks and bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. God, I'm ready for the people in the comments who are like, why even mute in the first place? I'm muting to make this a better experience for y'all. Ironically, I make it a worse experience for all of us.
It's a fun. It's a funny comment. I'm muting to make this a better show for everybody.
That is,
right. Probably would be.
It's like you have a choice.
The more mute,
you can listen to Luke and Jimmy for 30 minutes, or you can listen to silence. And I think
like our mute is Saturday Night Live's cowbell. People are listening to us going, more mute, give us more mute.
All right, Jimmy, we're going to do the classic management style method. I think there was Michael Scott said there's win-win, lose-win, lose-lose, and win-win-win. That's when we all win, and I win because I negotiated. Anyway, it's so stupid. I love Michael Scott. Okay, I'm going to start with the refs, and I know this. I have Auburn friends that'll be listening to this going, Luke, you always tell everybody the refs aren't perfect and we need to deal with it and quit blaming the refs. What I'm saying is every game, your team doesn't lose because of the refs, okay? That just doesn't happen. I see a lot of fans for other schools. I see fans for Alabama saying, the refs hate us. The refs. I don't think that's the case at all. I think these refs are clearly incompetent. I think that bunch yesterday doesn't know what's happening. Now, they're going to say, well, you come out here and do it. I don't get paid to do it. I hadn't gone through any schooling. I'm just telling you that if you call a foul on LT Overton in that situation that you caused by not interrupting the play, that's on you. I think when you call a penalty on KLaw when everybody's wrestling for the ball, now, why they were wrestling for the ball, I don't know, because I didn't see it even come close to a Missouri player. Like, I kept looking on the highlights, on the replay, like, why in the world is everybody going after the ball? I don't see a Missouri player near it. But for some reason, one of the Alabama players thought it hit a Missouri player. It didn't. Some of the other penalties were just absolutely atrocious. And then you go back to the Tennessee game, obviously, and you talk about, they almost pulled Ryan Williams' shirt off. And I know Alabama's gotten the beneficiary of some of these calls too. So I'm not saying this is a one-sided thing. I'm saying the SEC or the NCAA or somebody needs to do something, because the officiating has gotten so god-awful that it's not right. It is affecting the way people view the game.
I'm tired of talking about it every Sunday. And again, it's easier to talk about, as you said, I don't want to sound like we're whining about that it's affecting Alabama, and that's the reason Alabama lost 2 games. We haven't said anything even approaching that, nor do I believe that. It's just outrageously bad. A friend of ours suggested it. I didn't even blink, and I fire them all. Fire them all. Fire every one of them in the league and start all over again next year with a completely new group from the head down. It's just terrible every week, and it's so frustrating. And again, I watch a lot of SEC. I see this in the other games too. It's not just the Alabama games that we study to death, but boy, I bet DeBoer can't talk about it in the press because you get fined. But I bet he's got to be shocked. Like, wow, this is the best league in the country. How's the officiating this bad in this league? Where I'm sure he thought he was going to. Hey, and one thing I'll say this about how hard the job is. I see a lot of people suggest, look, they got to go to professional refs like the NFL. They've got to go to full time. And I see a lot of people say that. And I'm not against that. As a matter of fact, I think that's probably a good idea, and the league could definitely afford to do that. But I would just point out that, by the way, people complain about NFL officiating every week. I mean, there's still a lot of complaints about officials in the NFL getting it wrong. It's not going to solve officiating forever, but I want to do it because, you know what, I think it would improve. It would be better than it is now, so that's worth it. But it wouldn't resolve everything, because the NFL hasn't resolved everything with the way they do it, and they do it better than anyone's ever done it. There will always be bad calls.
There will always be bad calls. There will always be calls that are phantom calls, because, I see, I think Philip Marshall for the Auburn side, he always says this, and I always think it's a bad comment on it. He said, call what you saw, not what you think you saw. I'm like, well, if I thought I saw it, then I saw it. You know what I mean? I'm like,
well, I get what he's saying. And I'm with him in principle, because phantom calls to me are the worst. Phantom calls are the worst.
I'm with him in principle too. But I don't think it's that what they thought they saw. Like, I don't think they have a predetermined call in mind. I think that, I do this all the time. You're like, hey, didn't I see you at the party? Like, no, I wasn't there. Like, oh, I thought I saw you. So in my head, I saw you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That sounds like a mute problem in your brain. I don't know about that one. I don't think I see people. No, I either see people or I don't. No, I'm saying about the calls is, they call pass interference, and then they show the replay, and there was no contact between the defender and the offensive player. I'm like, how in the world can you call pass interference when pass interference did not happen?
Because I can get this, Jimmy, and now I can get this, because if a player goes up and makes some incredibly athletic play, contorts his body, and the defender is very near him, and you are, even if you're in position, you may not be able to see, your thought process is there's no way you contort it that way without being pushed or hit or something like that. I get that. Now, I don't know how to fix that. That's my thing. Those aren't the calls that bother me. The calls that bother me is when KLaw pushes a guy retaliates, punches him in the face, and they penalize KLaw. That bothers me.
Yeah, that's outrageous. And again, I'm all for firing them all. Did we determine that thing we were looking at this morning before the show? Did that really happen in the Auburn game? Were there 14 players on the field for a field goal?
Yes, that did happen.
That really happened.
Yeah.
There you go.
That should have been a penalty.
14.
Everybody just go straight to the locker room. I know they ended up doing it anyway. They should have said everybody go home and start counting.
Yeah, well, they should have fired all the officials immediately and just brought in people from the stands to finish that out if they can't.
That is reviewable, I think. So they probably would have, I mean, I say they would have caught it. I don't know if they would have caught it, but I think it's reviewable.
I wasn't watching the Auburn game when that play happened. I watched some of the. I mostly watched LSU and didn't see a ton of Auburn, but so I wasn't watching the game when it happened. I just saw that still photo that you saw, and I was like, leave it to SEC officials not to be able to count. I mean, 14. I could see how you would sometimes miss 12 guys on the field. I mean, I could see that, but 14.
Yeah. I'll find the picture for that.
For those that are listening, they don't even know that. Apparently, if y'all unaware, Auburn kicked a field goal, and there were 14 players on the field when they kicked the field goal, and I believe it was uncalled. I don't know how you line up. How did they line up with 14 guys, and then Auburn's players not be looking at each other going, wait a minute, this doesn't look right?
Yeah, I mean, boy, they had max protect on that one.
Yes, you said they did. But I don't know. For all I know, they called a penalty, and I just saw a photo of Auburn lined up with 14 guys. So I made the natural assumption that the SEC officials let them do that.
I didn't mean to do a whole segment on officiating. I think it is deserved, though.
We need to do one every day, all week until there's a change, like chaining ourselves to a tree, like people do for some cause. That's our cause.
We're going to chain ourselves to the head official and just make both our lives miserable.
Chain ourselves to this laptop and not shut up about it.
Game time. What time is it? It's game time. And it's always game time. And look, I've used game time for Alabama, Wisconsin tickets. I've used it for Alabama baseball. I'm going to use it for some Alabama basketball, which is around the corner, y'all. Use it for NBA, World Series. Used it for everything. NFL, it's concerts. You can use it for whatever you want because Game Time is best. And I'm starting to see more national commercials for Game Time. And I attribute their success mostly to us, but mostly also to their own awesomeness because Game Time is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Look, there are other services out there. And if you want to go get hosed by some other service, go for it. That's your prerogative. I'm telling you, my experience with Game Time has always been awesome. I would recommend. I used it for Utah Jazz game the other day. Now, it was a preseason game. I know. It's sort of like, did we improve or was it the opponent? But I got a ticket on Game Time for $1 because I was like, all I want to do is go in and see the Delta Center. And I was like, Game Time's going to give me the cheapest and the best seats I could possibly get. So I just got me a ticket on Game Time for $1 because I love Game Time. So you will love Game Time too. Get in the game by using Game Time. And what time is it? It's game time.
Game time.
Okay. A few other things. I guess we do need to bring up Milroe. Was Milroe improved or was it the opponent? I'm going to say this. If Milroe's a stock, I'm going to say hold. I'm not going to say buy. I'm not going to say sell. I'm going to say the more I've watched some of this game, and I've rewatched a lot of this game already, I don't know how much better he's gotten, but I still think he played better. And so I hope people don't misconstrue this as being negative. He still had some really bad misses in here. He still had some bad reads. But in the second half, specifically on that drive, that KLaw gave us a spark on, I'll always maintain, my favorite gump, he had nice vision, and he broke free on a long run. We've been waiting for that. Instead, I think Milroe's better at breaking free on runs than he is on design runs.
On the design runs. I think early in the season, the design runs were working really well. But I think, you put so much on tape. I think Alabama put so many of those quarterback design runs on tape, they became easier to defend as the season went on because teams had seen it. I think it was a Tennessee game. I remember specifically thinking they knew exactly what we were about to run by the way we lined up and everything else. And they just, and Milroe had no chance, and it was a 5-yard loss. And I'm with you, Luke. I do think Milroe's more dangerous on the breakdown scrambles. That's when he can really, he's a punt returner then, in that broken field. I think when teams spy him, sometimes they're making a mistake. When he's really fresh and he's got his good burst, there's no spy that can keep up with him. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, but I think Milroe played well. I think the bar is set really high, in part because he set the bar high with outstanding performances at some points in his career. So when he's not the great Jalen Milroe, he gets criticized. But I thought he played well. I wanted him just to play clean and fewer errors, and I felt he did exactly that: cleaner, fewer errors, fewer bad plays, and no turnovers. And I think he made it look easy to sort of, in terms of, hey, was it the opponent? I forget what it was going into last week, but just 2 weeks ago, Missouri was number 4 in the SEC in total defense. I mean, this has been a good defense all year long. They're not super elite, but they're good.
No, I'm going to interrupt you and say this. I feel like Missouri's played 2 teams, A&M and Bama. They played them both on the road. They got
whacked,
demolished in both. Now, the A&M's probably looks a little better because Cook did play the entire time. I don't know that Cook playing would have made a big difference. Yeah, I think Missouri might have scored 14 points, but the defense seemed to be on point. It didn't feel like Missouri really had their act together. I'm also a little surprised by this. Eli Drinkwitz seemed like kind of a jerk all game. Did he not?
He's got a strange personality to me where I agree. It's like during the week, there can be interviews where he's one of the more entertaining, fun guys in the league, and he's interesting. But yeah, he sort of loses it during games to the point that he's probably not one of my favorites in the league. But I do sort of appreciate the fact he's not a robot. I mean, he is interesting off the field, and he's good for a quote, but he's moody. I guess that's the best way to put it. Real moody. Like he can be really likable or really, geez, what was that, Eli? Calm down.
Okay. I'm going to give you, I want quick answers here because I want to get through some of these. And I'm going to let you determine. I'm going to give you some good questions and then some questions about what I think is wrong. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Number 1, did you think the DBs played well? I did, because I didn't hear their names very often.
I mean, I'll give them an incomplete grade because Missouri was so bad throwing the ball that it wasn't a real test. But when they did throw the ball, I thought they were really good.
Okay. Are you a little more scared though of LSU having seen them last night, even though they lost? Aaron Anderson. I mean, he and KLaw were in the same class. People forget that 2022, both out of Louisiana.
Aaron was always going to be a good player. So just takes some time. Just takes time. Just takes time for some kids. They're not all ready to be stars right out of the 12th grade.
So are you a little more scared?
My views of LSU have never changed all season. I think they're really good, and I think they're playoff worthy. Nothing about last night changed that to me. Playoff worthy, I'm not telling you guys that they're going to be in the playoff. I'm telling you LSU will be as good as teams that make the playoff.
What is going on with Kobe Prentice?
He had I'm writing it off to this for now. He was hurt and missed 2 or 3 games. Last week was his first game back, and he only played 3 snaps. Okay. I'm writing it off to rust. He hasn't played considerable snaps in games and weeks. I'm writing it off to rust, but if he plays that poorly again, we're just going to have to see more of Henderson and less of Kobe.
With you. Where was Deontay Lawson? I don't feel like they called his name at all yesterday.
He was out there and played. I don't recall, like you said, I don't recall him standing out as much as 11. Sometimes I've noticed that some weeks, they play such a similar position lined up next to each other. Some weeks it seems like 0's the better player. Some weeks it looks like 11's the better player. Yesterday was definitely a better day for 11.
Well, 1 minus 1 is 0, and so they might be the same person. Maybe that's what they're trying to go with about 11. Anyway, that was stupid. Jam and Justice. Jam got loose on a couple, and Justice had maybe the best play by a running back this year where he low man wins. Here's one other thing I'll say about officiating I don't understand. How that wasn't targeting on both players, I'll never know.
Both players, yeah. I mean, I thought we're trying to eliminate what happened there.
I don't want to take it away because I think it's a great football play.
What I don't like is the call when the call's made, it's almost 100% of the time on the defense. Yeah. When even if the offensive guy lowers his head first and doesn't have his eyes up, he doesn't see where he's hitting.
But did that play, do you feel like Jams got loose a few times? And Justice with that play, which ultimately led to his, he ended up scoring on that play. Is that their turnaround?
I don't know, because there's so many other factors about play calling and the blocking up front. But I will say the second half of the Missouri game was the best Alabama's run game has looked all year long. It seemed to me, and I hope that was a turn the corner thing. I'm not going to believe it until I see more of it. But I do think it's Justice had gone several games without being impressive, and then he was all of a sudden extremely impressive in the second half of the game. I agree with you, Luke. That may have been the best, most impressive looking Alabama run from the running back position all year on Justice's big play. And prior to that, probably the best running back play was Justice in the opener when he ran 85 yards or something against Western Kentucky.
I would argue Jam's blocks a couple of different times would be the best play by running back, which is not saying a lot.
No,
but
I like that. I like
finally, and this is a question that is kind of interesting now. A friend and I were watching the game yesterday, and we sort of looked at each other, and we're like, is Jeremy Burnett our best receiver right now? I think he might be.
Well, first of all, Jeremy's a real good player. I mean, I saw some random comment a few days ago about how he's not special. I was blown away by that. To me, he's a pro. He's an NFL player. He's gonna be an NFL football player, which used to mean something. We were so spoiled by Saban. You have to kind of be top half of the first round to get anybody's attention around here for some reason, and we've forgotten that just being good enough to play in the NFL means you're a real special football player. And Jeremy's a pro. To me, he plays the position like a pro, and we're lucky to have him. I still think he's Robin to Ryan's Batman, but for both of them to be effective, for Batman to be truly effective, he needs Robin, and there is no Robin without Batman. So we need Ryan and Jeremy both, and to truly turn into the offense we can be, that roster needs to be expanded into other playmakers, like you pointed out earlier in the show. KLaw might be becoming one of those guys, and hopefully Cole Adams is okay. I haven't heard an update on him, but that didn't look too good.
The winter soldier. We got to get him better. All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.